Hey everyone, this is Jerry with San Pedro Mastery. I've often been asked to make videos on grafting. Today we're starting with the first one, where I will show you how to graft a pup onto an adult San Pedro. In this video, I will be grafting this small Pachanoi pup onto an adult plant, also a Pachanoi, but of different strain. As you probably already know, the reason why people graft plants is to make them grow faster. In this case, this pup is important to me, and I would like it to grow fast, so that I can get it to flower and fruit several years earlier than it would have done without grafting. Before we start, in case you didn't know, the piece you are grafting on top of the other one is called the scion, and the base is called the stalk. So, the stock I will be using today is this beautiful Sardagnola A1 strain. This particular plant already starred in two videos of mine that you may remember from about 9 months ago, where I cut two San Pedro columns that had grown too tall and later repotted them. Well, the bottom parts of the plants have since grown some pups. You can see them here and there. I am choosing Sardagnola A1 as a grafting stock because it is a fast-growing strain, and I want to give the scion the best chances to grow fast. The faster it grows, the sooner it will flower, and the sooner I can produce new interesting seeds. If you are in the US or Canada, you can use the PC as stock for your grafts. The PC is available cheaply everywhere in North America and makes great grafting stock. If you are unfamiliar with the PC, I have a video dedicated to it. If this graft works, then this pup will carry on growing with as much strength as if it was still on the mother plant. The alternative would be not to graft it, like the pup you see here. Sure, it would make roots and carry on growing, but the growth would be considerably slower due to the minimal amount of energy stocked in such a small plant. So it would grow very slowly, and not just that, it would also probably etiolate, which means it would grow thin. For this plant to reach flowering stage without grafting, that would probably take twice as long. So, which of these pups should I use for stock? The fat one on the left, or one of the slimmer ones on the right? Quite frankly, any of them would be a good match for the scion I have. The ones on the right seems to be a better match for the scion in terms of width. But instead, I will choose the much wider stock on the left. This will give me a stock that is much wider than the scion, and I do that in the hope that the wide stock will allow for more water and nutrients to pass through, and therefore yield a faster growth. In order to graft together two pieces of cactus, you need to cut both the scion and the stalk. And that cut needs to be very straight. For that reason, I recommend the use of a wide blade, because it's easier to guide it into a perfectly straight cut than a narrow blade. Of course, the blade also has to be sharp. The knife I am using in this video is unfortunately very blunt. I only realized that when I started to cut, but fortunately it still worked out alright. If the cut is not straight, you will need to recut. Now, pay attention to the circle in the center. That's the core of the cactus, also called the vascular ring. Ideally, you want the rings to be of a similar size on both the scion and the stalk. Next, we're going to cut the stalk. I make a first cut very close to the tip, and then I look at the size of the ring. The ring is going to be smaller near the tip. You can tell that the knife is blunt because the outer layer of the skin gets a bit ripped here and there. A very sharp blade will give you a much cleaner cut. And it doesn't have to be a knife, you can also use a large cutter. Now, if I bring the scion into the picture, you can see that the ring on it is larger than on the stalk. That means I have to cut the stalk again until I find a big enough ring size. Although the blade is blunt, it is wide, which helps in making a straight cut. By straight, I mean it's a flat surface. You won't want any gaps of air between the scion and the stalk. As you can see, the vascular ring is still too small, so I will have to cut again. In fact, it will take a couple more cuts until I find a ring size I'm happy with. Next step is to bevel cut the ribs at a 45-degree angle. You want to make sure none of the skin from the stalk comes into contact with the scion. This is because the cactus flesh in the center is going to shrink as it dehydrates and cures. But the skin on the outside is not going to shrink. As a result, the dried skin on the stalk would push out the scion and therefore make the graft fail. You have to cut between the ribs as well. This is important to make sure there can't possibly be any piece of dried skin that pushes against the scion when the union dries. Now it's all good, but after all this cutting, the central area of the union has become a bit too small for my liking. And also, the cut is a bit tilted. The cut should be straight, not just in the sense of being a straight line, but also in the sense of being horizontal. Because the cactus flesh is very slimy and slippery, and if there is a slope, then the scion might just not stay where it's supposed to be. Alright, done. That looks a lot better now. It may not be perfect, for instance, I don't like the way the outer skin has been ripped by the blunt knife, but hey, this is my first graft ever. Now I'm going to place the scion on top of the stock. Just before that, off camera, I've re-sliced the scion very thinly so that the cut is super fresh. You want both pieces to be very moist when you join them. So if you've left either the scion or the stock sitting for more than a few minutes, it's a good idea to make a thin final cut before you unite them. Now we're going to attach the scion to the stock. I am using some knee-high stockings, but anything stretchy will do, anything that can apply pressure on the union. As you can see, the spine on Sardagnola A1 really help and are almost enough to keep the stocking in place. Next, I'm stretching some saran wrap, which I've folded a few times to shape it like a ribbon, around the stock, to ensure the stocking stays in place. And finally, I place some large elastic bands to further ensure there is enough pressure on the scion. This is just the way I've done it, but there are many ways you could secure the scion in place. You can get creative there. 7 days later, it's time to open it all up. I should have cut a little bit deeper between the ribs, as the skin of the stock is dangerously close to the scion, but it doesn't seem to have pushed it out, so it looks like we're good. The scion seems well anchored on the stock. And this is the plant right now, which is 7 weeks after I did the graft. As you can see, it has grown quite a bit. If we look at the union, it all looks as it should. This strain of Pachanoi has a lot of ribs, as you can see. There are 9 ribs at the tip, which is a lot. Originally, this pup even had 11 ribs, but as you can see, it dropped 2 of them. It's my first graft ever, and I'm relieved it was not a fail. In just a few years, this small pup will hopefully turn into a large flowering plant. I will keep you posted on how it grows. So far, I have only done 2 grafts. The first one that we saw previously, and another one more recent but also successful, where I grafted another Pachanoi pup that I would like to turn into a flowering plant. After my difficult previous experience with a blunt knife, I ordered a cheap knife from Amazon. It only cost me €5 with free shipping. The comments warned me that it gets rusty after a while, but I don't care. It is sharp and it has a wide blade, which is all you need. It takes me a few attempts until I make a cut that is perfectly flat. As you can see, this Pachanoi has a lot less ribs than the one I grafted previously. 6 ribs is more the norm for a San Pedro. Oh, by the way, I highly recommend disinfecting the blade before each cut. I just pour some alcohol on a kitchen towel and then wipe the blade with it between cuts. The kind of alcohol you use doesn't really matter in my opinion. I used 96-degree alcohol, but you can also use 70-degree alcohol. Some people say it's better not to place the vascular rings perfectly on top of each other, and instead have them overlapping, while other people disagree and say it doesn't matter. I certainly did not try to place them in overlapping fashion. In any case, it's impossible to know exactly how the rings match up. I'm sure sometimes they'll be right on top of each other, and other times they'll be overlapping. Does it really matter? If you think you know the answer, please share it with us in the comment section below. One thing that does make a difference is that you should try to do grafts during the growing season, as opposed to the winter where the plant kind of hibernates. I have no first-hand experience of that, but it absolutely makes sense. If you have some questions regarding grafts, please do not ask me, because my level of experience in that field is very poor, and I don't feel ready to give any advice on the topic. Today, I've covered larger grafts, where I fit a fairly large pup on top of an adult stock. But in future videos, I'll be covering other types of grafts. One of them would be grafting seedlings, obviously on a stock that would be much thinner. Grafting seedlings would be very interesting to me, as it would allow me to find out much faster what my new varieties of crosses will eventually look like when they are adult. I will probably also make some grafts with peyote, because it's something many of you guys have been asking for. So please subscribe so that you don't miss any of that. And if you would like to buy some of the many varieties of hand-pollinated seeds that I produce myself, or some seedlings grown from it, please send me an email. Don't forget to specify your country. My email address can be found in the description of this video, but I will also make it appear now on the screen. It's sanpedromastery@protonmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon with more videos.